What's going on, guys? Creative King here, back again for another video, and today I am bringing you the Apex Legends Season 13 Weapons Tier List. Now, just a couple days ago, I uploaded our Apex Legends Season 13 Legend Tier List, and now here I am doing a tier list for all the weapons. So, enough talk. If you enjoy the content, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I plan to make more content like this. I will have a ranked tips guide coming out within the coming weeks, so be sure to stay tuned for that. And let's dive right into the tier list. So starting with D tier, we are going to have the P2020, the Mozambique, and the RE45. Now these should pretty much be self-explanatory. P2020, probably one of the worst guns of the game. Mozambique, it's better than the EVA 8 with hammer points, and honestly, yeah, here we're even going to put the EVA 8 in D tier as well, because the EVA 8's also just garbage. RE45 is basically an attachment holder for any of the other light guns. However, if you have hammer points with it, it is a decent secondary. So if you end up having a hammer point RE45 with a blue or higher mag, if that's going to be your secondary weapon, totally rock it. It's not going to let you down. It's pretty good with the hammer points. Otherwise, yeah, drop it for something else. Same applies for the P20. If you have a really good trigger finger and you can control the P2020, especially with the hammer points, it'll be a good backup secondary weapon for you, and I highly recommend running it. However, without the hammer points, it's kinda bad. And then same story goes for the Mozambique. But it does outplay the EVA 8 a bit. EVA 8 is just pretty much hot garbage. It's been nerfed to the ground. It was good in some seasons past, but with the Peacekeeper being good and the Mastiff in the care package and even the Mozam just having hammer points, the EVA 8's pretty much just outclassed in every way. So those are our D tier weapons. So now that we got those out of the way, we can go into more detail with C tier and upwards. So for C tier, we're going to start off with the Alternator Smg and the Prowler Burst Smg. Now, both of these SMGs are really good, and I personally really love using both of them myself. The thing with the Alternator is its slow fire rate, and it has the slowest time to kill out of any gun. It's just, well, any auto gun, that is. Any gun that's automatic, it's just, yeah, it'll get outplayed by anything. It's really, unless the person you're going up against has awful aim, which if you are one of those people who can't hit your shots, Aim Labs is free on Steam, by the way. The Alternator's just gonna let you down. The only thing that made the Alternator good was when it was in the care package and it had the disruptor rounds, because it would just melt the shield, and that's when it was really good. And next up we got the Prowler Burst SMG. Same story for the Prowler. It received a little bit of a nerf at the start of Season 10 after it came out of the package. That first week it was really good out of the package on the ground. It was insane. Then they nerfed it and it really just hasn't been the same after that. And it also suffers the same fate as the Alternator. When it was in the care package and it had its select fire hop up, you could put that thing in full auto. Absolutely insane, great gun. But the fact that you can only have it in burst mode now, it's just gonna get outplayed by other guns like the Car SMG or even the R9. So that is why the Alternator and the Prowler are in C tier for me. Now, next up in C tier, we are going to have the Hemlock Burst Rifle. And the Hemlock pretty much is similar to the Prowler in terms of the burst is just gonna get outplayed. With the Flatline and the R301 just being better alternatives, and they have the same single fire potential that the Hemlock has, it's just more worth running an R3 or a Flatline that's full auto, which you could turn into single fire, instead of running the Burst Rifle, which can also turn to single fire. So like, I'll take full auto and use single fire off the Flatline instead of the Hemlock. It's basically getting outplayed by the other rifles, kind of the same story as the Prowler. It's just like the Burst is just going to get outplayed. So for that reason, the Hemlock is also in C tier. So moving right along, next up in C tier, we have the L-Star, and yeah, it was a meme, and it was just a complete meme when it was first added in the game, and I remember messing around with it back in Season 3, and it was just, for a care package weapon, it was even worse than the G7, and people complain that the G7 is just garbage in the care package. Like, you don't know garbage until you saw the care package L-Star. Like, that was just, nah. At least the G7 is useful in the care package. But yeah, the L-Star, complete garbage, and then it got buffed like tenfold at Season 10, and I loved running it then. It was absolutely insane. And then they nerfed it to the ground again this season, so now it's pretty much back to being all but useless. However, it is a good attachment holder if you're trying to run energy weapons, and yeah, it will serve you decently in the early game. But aside from that, it is stuck in C tier. So moving right along, I think that does it for all of the C tier weapons. So I think we're finally moving up into B tier. Now in B tier, we are gonna have the R99. We are going to have, let's see, the triple take, the bow as well. And we'll cover those three, and we'll add more to B tier. Actually, and the 3030, of course. The 3030 will also be in B tier. Starting off with the R99, it does what the Alternator cannot. While it has the lowest damage per bullet, it has a faster time to kill and one of the fastest fire rates in the game, only rivaled by the Car SMG. So it is definitely something to run. However, I highly recommend you pick up a Car SMG if you find one to replace your R99 with, because it has a faster time to kill and DPS than the R9. But until you find that, the R99 is definitely not gonna let you down. You just gotta be really accurate with it, which once again, Aim Labs is free on Steam. You can practice your accuracy there. And that is basically why the R99 is in B tier. The car basically just outplays it in all the things it was known for. It was known for its one clipping potential, having the fastest DPS, and yeah, the car just outplays it in terms of damage per bullet, its time to kill, DPS. The car just outplays it in pretty much every way except recoil. The only thing the R99 has over the car is slightly easier to control recoil. And for that reason, the R99 is in B tier. Moving on, we got the triple take. Now the triple take, it's a good weapon. Definitely a good weapon. It just takes a lot of energy ammo, using 3 per shot, and the time it takes to choke it up can sometimes be a downfall on it, because it did receive a bit of a nerf at the end of last season, I believe, or was it the start of last season? Either way, I remember it received a nerf, so its pellet spread, like each individual pellet did a little bit less damage. So unless you're choking it and hitting all the pellets on it, it's gonna be a bit lackluster, especially with the long range you're gonna be having on Storm Point. You need to make sure that all those pellets are hitting for the maximum amount of damage for it to really be worthwhile. However, it does make a good shotgun in a pinch if you do not have one, and the kinetic feeder does make the reload potential when using it as a shotgun okay, but for those reasons, it's gonna sit in B tier. Next up, we have the Bow Check Compound Bow, and it is basically gonna be everything the triple take is, but better. The only downside for it, though, is it takes a unique ammo type that is arrows. And because it takes arrows, that's the main reason it's sitting in B tier. Because if you have the bow, and you have a good scope on it, and you're accurate, it's just like the 3030. It'll deliver, it'll pack a big punch, it is good. The thing with it, though, is that ammo type. It's so hard to find arrows at times, so when you're late in the game, so when you're late in the game and you gotta trade it out for a different weapon, it doesn't help you as much there, because then you're stuck scrambling in death boxes trying to swap off it for something more useful. However, the fact that it can take shatter caps makes it really a full-on shotgun at close range, which is really good, especially paired with the Deadeye's tempo, where you can get into that fire rate and you start spamming it like a shotgun, or even down at range. You're gonna put out a lot of damage if you keep landing those body shots for 60 and those headshots for over 100. It definitely will not let you down if you're accurate with it, and it definitely will save you in a pinch at close range. And then next up, we have the 3030, which is basically the same story as the bow. The only difference is it does not have the Deadeye's tempo, and it takes heavy ammo. 3030, it's honestly a bit of a sleeper weapon this season. I've seen it used a bit, and it's quite good. Especially since you can put a 2-4 on it, and you can only have a 3 times on the bow. You can get a little bit longer range on it. The big thing for me with the 3030 is the drop-off. It has such a large bullet drop-off that when you're trying to use it at range on Storm Point, you really gotta aim high in the sky to even just try and hit someone. It really does get get a little tricky to land your shots at times on certain points at Storm Point. However, the fact that it can take shatter caps is really, really nice, and it basically, just like the Bocek, it gives you a mini shotgun if you're in a pinch. However, the big reason it's in B tier is the dual shell hop-up is no longer available on ground loot. You cannot get the dual shell hop-up since it's been built into the care package Mastiff. They pulled it out of the ground loot rotation, and that was one of the big things that made the 3030 good, is you could reload it 2 at a time. Because when you have a max mag on the 3030, having those 12 shots and you gotta reload them one by one, it just has such a long reload time that you're better off giving it a gold mag. It's just not worth spending all that time reloading. So for those reasons, the 3030 is in B tier. Alright, so next up in B tier, we are gonna have the Devotion. Now the Devotion, it got a big bunch of nerfs at the start of this season. However, it is still a beast. The big thing for the Devo, though, is turbocharger, turbocharger, turbocharger. It's just not as good as it could be without a turbocharger. And the fact that it received some damage nerfs, some headshot multiplier nerfs, and with the helmets getting a buff, you really, with how fast the Devo fires, you really have to be accurate with it. Even though it has 48 shots, you gotta start landing even more of them now than you used to. And for those reasons, it's gonna sit in B tier. Now, next up, and I'm putting it in B tier, Rampage LMG. We got the Rampage. Oh, how I despise and hate that weapon, and I would love to put it in D tier just out of spite. However, it is a good weapon, and the big reason it's B tier and not A tier is because it's in the Replicator, which I'm very happy it's in the Replicator, because I haven't seen a single person use it aside from the gaming merchant. And that is the best thing I've seen all season, is no one using the Rampage. The other thing is that it takes a thermite to get all revved up, and let's be real, you don't want to carry 3 or 4 thermite grenades when you could be carrying more ammo or meds. So for reasons like that, the LMG is going to be in B tier, but the Rampage is still decent. However, since the Spitfire's back on the ground, I personally would pick up the Spitfire. I think that will do it for everything in B tier. So moving on to A tier. Actually, no, we have one more in B tier. One more B tier, and that is the Sentinel Sniper. The Sentinel is basically just outplayed by the Longbow. Now that the Longbow is back on the ground, it's basically the Longbow's the better sniper. The Sentinel has such a small mag size compared to the Longbow, and it has a bigger bullet drop off than the Longbow, since the Longbow can have a barrel stave. Even though the Sentinel is a mini Craver, you really don't want to sacrifice 2 shield cells to amp it up to get that high damage potential. So for those reasons, the Sentinel will also reside in B tier. So now, moving on to A tier. In A tier, we are going to start off with the Longbow, and the Longbow is basically the better Sentinel. You got 12 shots per mag, a faster fire rate, huge headshot potential, and it's all of that, and it doesn't drink a crazy amount of ammo. You can carry 2 or 3 stacks and be set. It's a really good all-around sniper. You got good range, not very much bullet drop. It's really, really good, and if you're going to be running a sniper this season, I recommend the Longbow. Or our next pick, the Charge Rifle. Now, the Charge Rifle, the difference between the two basically is going to be your ammo usage. If you're running the Charge Rifle, even more accurate and more damage output than the Longbow. However, you're going to need a purple bag and you're going to need a bunch of ammo. If you don't have 96 ammo minimum, you're going to run out of sniper ammo, and it's not going to be a fun time for you. So for those reasons, the Charge Rifle resides in A tier and not S tier, because it just drinks way too much ammo unless you have a large enough backpack to hold over 100. But it's still really good, and it's still going to sit in A tier alongside the Longbow. Next up, we have the Wingman. Now, I know a lot of you are going to be like, oh, why is the Wingman not an S tier? It's so good. The reason the Wingman is in A tier for me is the skill to use it. If you're a pro player and you know how to hit your Wingman shots and you are bop, bop, bop and you're just hitting them in the head 2, 3, 4 times and downing them, yeah, Wingman's S tier. Absolutely insane. However, to the average player, they're not going to be hitting as many Wingman shots as the pros, and for that reason it's going to sit in A tier because the Wingman's only as good as the person using it, and if they're good using it, they're going to absolutely melt through you. If they don't know how to use the Wingman, they're going to miss all their shots and they're an easy kill for you. So for that reason, the Wingman is in A tier. So moving right along in A tier, we are going to have the Peacekeeper. Now the Peacekeeper is the best of the ground loot shotguns. And it's the fact that it has kinetic feeders and added bonus, so when you're sliding down hills on Storm Point, especially if you're leaving somewhere like Lightning Rod and rotating down to Stormcatcher, when you're sliding down that hill you can pop some shots at people and get the slide reload. The kinetic feeder is a little more useful on this map than it is on others. And the fact that it's the only ground loot shotgun that has any potential to rival the care package Mastiff, it's going to be one of your must-pick shotguns. It's really going to be your must-pick until you find a Mastiff in the care package. High damage, put on that choke, and you can pop them in the head for over 100. It's just the shotgun you're going to want. However, there are some better weapons that can outplay it, and that's why it's going to sit in A tier. So moving right along, next up in A tier is going to be the Havoc. Now I personally love the Havoc, and I love it so much that I want to put it in S tier so badly, but the Havoc suffers the same as the Devotion a bit in terms of turbocharger, turbocharger, turbocharger. You gotta have a turbocharger on the Havoc, otherwise it will screw you over. The wind-up time on that Havoc, it gives you a nice chance for someone to pop you in the head with a PK before you even start shooting while you're waiting for it to wind up. And for that reason, it's going to sit in A tier. However, its recoil buff that it got to make its recoil a little easier, definitely huge for it. And if you're on Storm Point, here's a little tip for you. If you have a Havoc and you go to one of the IMC vaults and you score at round 4 or higher, you are guaranteed a turbocharger every time from the vault. So if you want to run yourself a Havoc every game, land at an IMC vault with it and get yourself that turbo. 9 times out of 10 you're going to get it as long as you're hitting round 4 and higher. You got yourself a turbo for that Havoc. But yeah, the fact that other maps don't have the luxury of smart loot pills like that for you to get the turbo, that's why the Havoc resides in A tier. Alright, so the last of our weapons are all going to be in S tier. We got the R301, the Car SMG, the Flatline, the, let's see, Spitfire, and then of course all the care package weapons, the Volt, the G7, the Craver, and the Mastiff. All of these are going to reside in S tier. R301, pretty self-explanatory. Still, even inside the replicator, the R3 is still a beast. And that's why it's contributing to the lack of rampage usage, because everyone will go to the replicator and clearly want an R301 over a rampage. It's just one of the best rifles out there, easy recoil, put plenty of attachments on it to make it even easier to control, good mag size, 1 clip potential, easy for the new players to use, all around a well-balanced, well-rounded gun, and it's going to sit comfortably in S tier like it has in seasons past. Next up, we have the Car SMG. The Car has been the best SMG in the game since it was added in Season 11. It outplays all the other SMGs. It has the highest DPS, time to kill, and does more damage per bullet than the R9, and it's just all around, if you're running an SMG, it's the pick that you're gonna want. And that is unless you find yourself a Volt SMG, in which case the care packaged Volt is gonna outplay the Car just barely if you're hitting your shots and the person using the Car misses a couple of his. But if you have the element of surprise on your hand and you start lasering with the Volt, you'll probably win with the Volt over the Car. Next up, we got the Flatline. With the Flatline back on floor loot, it's going to see a lot more use since the R3's in the Replicator, and it's going to hit like a truck. Even with its 1 damage nerf that it received last season, it still absolutely slaps. It's still really easy to control on hip fire, and it's going to be one of the best rifles you can get off the ground loot. I highly recommend learning how to control the Flatline. You can get rid of all recoil on it if you jitter aim, so be sure to check out videos on how to jitter aim. It's pretty simple to do. You just gotta move your mouse up and down and then make it small circles as fast as you can, and it basically cancels out all recoil on the Flatline. Don't ask me why it does that, but it does, and it makes it such a laser when you're trying to beam at range. Next up, we have the Spitfire. The dreaded LMG that made its return to the ground loot that everyone fears, the Spitfire. It received a bunch of nerfs, however, that didn't seem to stop it. It had its mag reduced from 55 to 50, it had its barrel stable removed, and it even had a couple of headshot multiplier nerfs and a little bit of a damage nerf too. And it still absolutely shreds. You could still one mag a whole team if you're hitting your shots. The only successful nerf to the Spitfire that I've really noticed is the fact that its hip fire definitely is not what it used to be. But when you're aiming down sights on it, you're still an absolute laser. So definitely, if you want to run an LMG, pick yourself up the Spitfire. And that will leave us to the rest of the care package weapons. G7 Scout is going to be really good on Storm Point since it's all about range on this map and how wide open it is. The single fire makes it good, and then when you put it in the double tap mode, you can get some nice peaks. If you want to know the best way to use the double tap G7 Scout, be sure to check out the YouTube short that I posted on my channel, the correct way to use the double tap G7. It'll show you exactly how to use double tap to its fullest potential. But with Storm Point being so open, the G7 will definitely be seeing more use this season. Next up, we have the Mastiff. Now, for those who don't know, back when the Mastiff was in the care package in the earlier seasons of Apex, it was an absolute beast. It was basically the shotgun version of the Craver. 1 shot to the head, 2 shot to the body. And while it will not 1 shot to the head anymore, the Mastiff, now that it's back in the care package, does indeed 2 shot to the body once again. They tightened its pellet spread, so if you hit a full-on body shot twice, 9 times out of 10 you're gonna knock them. I believe the red armor makes it so that they survive with like 1 HP or something. So yeah, definitely pick up the Mastiff. If you see it, pick it up. They did reduce its mag size from 6 to 4. However, it does have dual shell built into it, so you can reload it 2 at a time. So you can get a really quick reload and pop 2 more big chunky Mastiff shots right into someone. It's just an absolute beast. Don't sleep on the Mastiff. If you see one, pick it up. And lastly, but certainly not least, we have the Craver. Now, the Craver did receive a nerf at the start of this season. It can no longer 1 shot to the head. However, this makes Rampart a lot more useful. I have a tip for you. Did you know that if you shoot the Craver through a Rampart amp cover, it will still 1-shot headshot anyone? It does not matter what helmet or evo they have. If they have a purple or gold helmet and a red shield, you can still 1-shot headshot them with the Craver through Rampart's amped cover. So the Craver still has a tiny bit of 1-shot potential should you have a Rampart on your team. And even if you don't, it's still a gun you're not gonna want to sleep on. The amount of damage it puts out, you can instantly crack someone with just a body shot. And a headshot will just mean it takes even more time for them to heal because you're leaving them on what, 30 HP? That's not a lot. It's pretty easy to pop a good Craver shot and then chuck some nades, and odds are you're gonna get some kills. Definitely don't sleep on the Craver even though it's been nerfed. But anyway, guys, that is my Season 13 weapons tier list. I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. I plan to make more content like this in the future, so be sure to stay tuned for the ranked guide that I plan to post in the next couple weeks. And be sure to follow me on Twitter and Instagram. Those links are in the description down below for you to check out. And if you want to join the Nerd Herd Discord, that too is also linked down below. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye, everyone!